Let's take a look at the week 1 lab. So I'm going to go down to the lab steps, which is here. And right there's instructions right there. Now you can do this either with Azure Labs, and here's instructions on how to do that, or you can install the software on your local computer, and there will be a video here to help you install it if you want to do that. Now the instructions are right down here. So we're going to click on week 1 lab instructions. So I'm going to click here on the Word document for the instructions. All right, so now I'm going to hit View, Page Width, and then they want us to create a BMI calculator. So heart rate, 220 minus a person's age, and they want these methods here created. And they want a separate test class, Lab 1 main, and they want it to work something like this. So you enter in the name and then or X to quit, and then show the BMI for that person, and then loop and continue looping until the user gives us an X to quit. All right, so that's the requirements. So health profile class is the first thing we want to accomplish. So let's flip on up. And then let's see. So we're going to want name, age, and actually right here is where they give it to us. So name, age, weight, and height, and they're private instance variables. All right, so open up NetBeans. So if you're on your own computer, or if you are on Azure Labs, you'll see an icon for Apache NetBeans. Go ahead and double click to open it. All right, we're going to create a new project by hitting this icon right there. So there's our new project icon. And then make sure that you have a check mark on Java with Ant, which is right there. And then click on Java application, hit next. And then we're going to call this week 1 lab, week 1 lab. And then this is a console application, so we want NetBeans to create a main method for us. So I'm going to leave that checked. Starting next week, when we do GUI applications, you're going to want to uncheck that. But for this week, make sure there's a check mark there. All right, hit finish. All right, our application has been created. Now, I'm not working on this one, so I'm going to close it. And then over here, I'm going to hit the minus sign. And then the one that we are working on is this one right here. So I'm going to hit the plus sign to open that up. And then plus sign to open up the source packages. And then the plus sign to open up the package. And then there's the code right there. So if I double click on that, that's what we have here. So if I close this and I double click on it, you can see that's what we have here. All right, so it's important that all of your code is inside of the source package. A common error is to put it into the project but not in the source, and if you do that, then it won't run. So please make sure that you keep your source code in these source packages. So to create the student, and actually let's go look at the instructions again. So the first thing that we want to do is create a health profile class, and I'm looking at, there's our health profile right there. And if I go down here to the very, very bottom, you can see they're looking for a health profile class, and they're looking for a main method. Now, I did not call it Lab 1 main, and that's okay. All right, so this is the important part right here, health profile class. All right, so I'm going to minimize. And then this is our main method. To create a different class, you click on the package, and then you right-click it, and then you hit New Java Class. New Java Class. And then we're going to call this health profile, like that. And classes need to start with the capital first letter, and then there needs to be no spaces in there. Okay, so this is called capital notation. So capital first letter and then a capital for every word inside of the name. So now at that point, I'm going to hit finish. And there's a health profile. So with your classes that you're going to be using to create objects, you want to do your attributes, and then you want to do your constructors, and then you want to do your behaviors, and then you want to do your getters and setters. All right, so for the attributes, that was on the instructions, so I'm going to flip on up, and they want these attributes here: name, age, weight, and height. Now, for the height, it's important to know that the height is in inches, okay? So that's important to keep that in mind. If you read the instructions carefully, it explains that. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize this, and then I'm going to do a Control V, and then name sounds like a string to me, right? So I'm going to say private string name, and then age, I'm going to go ahead and say private int age. I could use a short, but just keep this as easy as possible. I'm going to go ahead and use an int, and then private double weight. I could use a float, but again, to keep it as easy as possible, I'm going to do that. All right, and then private double height. All right, so if somebody says, hey, 5 feet 11 inches and a half, all right, by using this as a decimal, it's going to allow that half to be put in there, okay? All right, so these are my attributes. So now I'm going to do a constructor. So the first one is going to be the default constructor, so public, and then the constructor has the exact same name as the class and no return type. So I'm going to grab the class name, I'm going to do a Control C, and then Control V, and then nothing inside the parameters. So I'm going to do curly brace enter key, and then if they don't give me anything, so if they're using the default constructor, then that means I need to set default values for everything. So for the name, I'm going to use unknown because they did not give me anything. For the age, I'm going to use 0. For the weight, I'm going to use 0.0. And then for the height, I'm going to use 0.0. All right, now you could put a 0 for the weight and for the height, but I strongly recommend that you always put a 0.0 when you're working with doubles and a 0.0f when you're working with floats. And the reason is because an extremely common error is people will say 9 divided by 10 like this, and then they will show result, and result will be 0. It won't be 0.9, it'll be 0. And the reason is because if you don't put a point, it creates an integer, and an integer divided by an integer will give back an integer. And then that integer is then assigned into a double, but by that time it's already too late. So the way to prevent this error is by always using a 0.0 whenever you're working with doubles, so that way Java or C# or C++, whatever language you're working with, will use a double and not an integer. All right, so this is a common error, and when you're working on an industry level project, that's an error that's hard to find. So common error. All right, so please be very careful with that. Always put a 0.0 when you're working with the double, 0.0f when you're working with the float. Okay, now the second constructor, I'm going to go ahead and say public, and then the file name. This time though, I'm going to let the person give me the name. Now notice that in Java, you have to use a capital S on string. All right, that's a requirement. And the reason is because it is a class, and Java is very much following the rules. And string is actually an array of characters. So that is a class, so it does have to have a capital S. All right, so then we're going to say int age, and then we're going to say double weight, and then we're going to say double height. Curly brace enter key. All right, so now when we're setting the name, we're going to go ahead and use the method. And I think I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to put some X's right here. And let's go ahead and do the getters and setters first. So you want your attributes to be private so that people have to go through the getters and setters to change or see the values. And that's called data protection. All right, so data hiding allows us to protect the data. So to do a getter, it's going to return back a string, which is the name. So I'm going to return back a string, and I'm going to say get name. And then also this needs to be public because this is going to give access to this value. And then I would put in curly brace enter key. To do getters are very, very easy. You simply return the attribute and you're done. Very easy. When you're doing a setter, that's when you want to give value for doing getters and setters. So we're going to say set name, and then to set the name, you need to give me a name to set it to. All right. So I'm going to put a curly brace enter key, but I'm going to validate it. And I think just to make this cleaner for you all, I think I'm going to go ahead and just say the new name that you want. All right. So to make it to accept this, I don't want to have blanks. All right. So I'm going to say if the new name that you're giving me, if the length, so I'm going to use a dot and I'm going to use length. If the length is greater than 0, then that means that you have some characters. So if the length is greater than 0, then this object's name is going to be assigned the new name that you're giving me. Otherwise, this object's name is going to be assigned unknown because we do not want to allow blanks. All right, this is very important in industry because if you allow blanks, then a hacker can have a blank for the name and then print out a check or a payroll check or something like this, and then the pay to is going to be blank, and then they can just write in their own information. All right, and that's a hacking technique. So you don't want to allow that. There should not be any blanks. Instead, we're going to put the word unknown. So if somebody prints out a check with the word unknown, the bank is not going to cash it. All right, so we're going to have an easier chance of catching this criminal by doing some small steps that's going to help protect our company and our business. All right, so there's my get name. So that's good. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing for the age. So I'm going to say public int or public, int get age, curly brace enter key. And again, the getters are very easy. You just return back the attribute. The setters are the ones that provide value. So we're going to say public void set age, and then we're going to say integer age, curly brace enter key, and then we're going to say if the age that you're giving me is greater than 0, then I'm going to say this object's age is going to be set to age. Otherwise, this object's age is going to be set to 0. Okay, because we cannot deal with negative numbers. A negative age, that doesn't make sense. Now you'll also notice that you can use the same variable for your object and also for your parameter as long as you use this dot in front of it. All right, so if you don't put anything, then you're talking about the local age, which is the parameter here. If you want to talk about the object's age, you have to use this dot. So it's very important to make sure that the color changes because we want to make sure that this object's age is being assigned the age here. Now, if you forget to put this dot in front of it, you'll see both sides are the same color, and that does absolutely nothing. In fact, if you look at that, it should be giving us, you can see the assignment value is never used, the sign value is never used. Assignment to itself. So it's saying it's doing absolutely nothing. Okay, so if the color does not change, be wary. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and say this dot so it's set up properly. All right, so there's my age. Now the next thing is going to be the weight. So it's going to be public double get weight. Curly brace enter key. I'm going to return the weight. And then down here, we're going to say public void set weight. And then you need to give me a double to set it to. So I'm going to say if the weight that you're giving me is greater than 0.0, then this object's weight is going to be set to the weight that you're giving me. Otherwise, this object's weight is going to be set to 0.0. All right, so now we're going to do the same thing with height. So we're going to say public double get height, curly brace enter key, and we're going to return the height. And then we're going to say public double, and then we're going to say set height. And there's two different ways that we can do this. So I'm going to say double height. Whoops, misspelled height. I'm going to say double height. And actually, instead of saying double height, I'm going to say double inches, like that. So people know that they need to give me just inches, and that's all. Then I'm going to say if the inches that you give me is greater than 0.0, then this object's height is going to be set to the inches that you give me. Otherwise, this object's height is going to be set to 0.0, like that. Now there's another way that they can give me the height. So I'm going to say public double, and actually I should not be a double, right? That should be a void. So our setters should not give back a return. So that should be void. So here, the other way that they can give me the information is like this. I'm going to say set height, and I'm going to say double feet. So tell me how many feet tall the person is, and then also tell me, and then for the number of feet, I want that as a whole number. So I'm going to make that an int. And then I want you all to tell me the inches as well. So I'm going to say double inches. So with this way right here, the person can say, I am 5 feet 11 inches tall. Okay, or they can just tell me right here, I am 59 inches tall. So by having an overloaded method, so this is one set height method that takes only one single parameter, and this is another set height method that takes 2 parameters. By having an overloaded method like this, it gives a user more options. All right, so now here I'm going to say if, and actually let's go ahead and convert this to inches. So I'm going to say inches is going to be the feet times 12 plus the inches, like that. Okay, so let's see, feet plus the inches. All right, so feet times 12, I'm going to put that in parentheses. Even though I don't have to because of order of operations. Multiplication is done before addition. And it's saying that we have a problem here, and inches is already defined in the method, int double, and so that's because inches is here. Okay, so inches is there. So I cannot reuse inches. So here I'm going to say total, like that. Okay. And then I'm going to say if the total is greater than 0.0, then this object's inches is going to be set to the total. Otherwise, this object's inches is going to be set to 0.0. And actually not inches, it should be height. So this object's height is going to be set to the total. Otherwise, this object's height is going to be set to 0.0. So the total is converting the feet to inches and then adding the additional inches. That's the total height. If that total is greater than 0, then I'm going to use that for the height. Otherwise, I am not going to take a negative number, so I'm just going to use 0.0. Okay? All right, so that's our getters and setters. Now here in the constructor, you don't want to just take the values because they could give us negative numbers, they could leave it blank, they could do everything. Instead, we're going to call this object's set name, and then we're going to give it the name. So we're going to take whatever name they give us, and we're going to send it down to the method so it can be validated. And then this dot is optional, in this case because there's no ambiguity. So I can just say set age, and I can just give it the age, and I can say set weight, and then I can set the weight that you give me, and then I can say set height, and then I can give it the height that you give me, like that, boom. So you can see that all these values are going to be validated using our setters. Okay, all right, so now we're here for our behaviors, and let's go see what behaviors we need to have. So set name, set age, we already got all those. Get name, get age, get weight, get height. These three right here are the ones that we want to do. And I don't like get BMI. I'm going to use calculate BMI, and then calculate category, and then calculate max heart rate. Okay, so let's go ahead and flip on over here. And then here for the behaviors, I'm going to say public, and then I'm going to say double, calculate BMI. And it has no parameters because we're going to be using the current attribute values. Okay, so there should not be any parameters here. All right, so now with this calculate BMI, we need to be able to take a formula and then take it to code. So this is the formula, and we want to take that to code. So BMI is going to be the weight times 706 divided by the height squared, the height in inches squared. All right, so here we're going to go ahead and say double BMI is going to be, and then you do the top, so weight times 703. So I'm going to say the person's weight times 703, and you want to do that first, so I'm going to put that in parentheses like that, okay? And then you want to divide that by the bottom, and then what's the bottom going to be? The bottom is going to be the height squared. So there's two different ways I can do that. I can say the height times the height, and guess what? That's the height squared, okay? A better way to do that, though, is to actually use the power function. So I'm going to go ahead and say pow, and nothing comes up. So I'm going to use the math library. I'm going to put a dot, and then from the math library, I'm going to use the power function. So this right here is the base, and this is the exponent. So that's what I'm going to be using. And then the base number is going to be the weight. It's actually going to be the height. So I'm going to say height to the power of 2. All right, so this is height squared. Boom. And by using the math class and using the power function, I'm showing people that I really understand Java well, and I know the math class, and I'm able to use it. Okay, so you could do it the other way. I like this way better because it shows more knowledge. All right, so that's going to calculate the BMI. And then once I have the BMI calculated, I simply return it. So I'm going to say return BMI that I've calculated. Like that, I'm done. Okay. Now, if you are comfortable with this, what you could do, you can actually do this on one single line. What you could do is simply calculate it and then return it and not even create a variable. So I can actually do it like this with one single line. So I'm going to do a Control C and then Control V. So this right here calculates the value, and then once I get that value, I simply return it and I'm done. Okay. So now the next thing that I want is public string calculate category. Curly brace enter key. So what I'm working on right now is this right here, and that is get category. So this is going to return the BMI, the category based on the BMI. And that category is this right here, underweight, normal, overweight, and obese. So based on the BMI, all right? So I'm going to flip over here. I need to return back a string. The first thing I need to do is I need to calculate the BMI. So I'm going to say double BMI is going to be, and then I simply call the method. So you can use methods within methods, no problem. So that right there is going to calculate the BMI. And by reusing code, it makes you more efficient. All right. So, and then if it turns out I have a bug in my calculation, I can fix it one time, one place, and I'm done. All right, so now I'm going to say if the BMI is less than, and what was it? 18.5, 18.5, then we're going to return underweight. Otherwise, if the BMI is less than 25, then we're going to return normal. Now you notice I don't have to do a range on here, okay? Because if they're less than 18.5, then it's going to return underweight and the method is over. So what's left is 18.5 and more. So if the BMI is less than 25 and I only have 18.5 and more, so therefore the person must be normal. So I'm going to return normal and the method is over. Otherwise, if the BMI is less than, I'm going to flip over here, less than 30, is less than 30, then we're going to return overweight. Otherwise, in all other cases, we're going to return obese. Overweight, obese. There we go. Okay, and that's it. We're done. All right, so now I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say public double, and let's see, 220 minus a person's age is the max heart rate. So I'm going to say calculate max HR. And I'm simply going to return 220 minus the person's age, and I'm done. All right, so that's it. This is finished. All right, so now at this point, I'm going to hit Save All, because you want to save on a regular basis. And in fact, when you make a change, you'll see that it highlights the tab, and it's telling you you need to save. Okay, so the bolded tab is NetBeans' way to tell you you need to save. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit Save All. So now we need to test this class and see how we're doing. So this class is going to be great because it allows us to track the name, the age, the weight, and the height, and then do functionality based on that. All right, so I'm going to flip back over here, back to the main method. So now I'm in the main. All right, so now in the main method, we want to show this statement right here. So we want to show that statement right there. And then we want to get the person's name and their information. And then we want to show the health profile. And then we want to loop and ask again. And we want to keep on looping until they give us an X. All right. So based on the person's name is going to tell us whether or not we want to continue. So the best thing to do, my opinion, is to go ahead and set up the loop. All right. So here we're going to loop until user gives us an X. All right. So I'm going to say string name, and I'm going to assign it to just blank, just like that. Okay. Then I'm going to say while name. Now here's something that's very interesting. Okay. If you say while name is not equal to X, like that, it will never stop. And the reason it will never stop is because, and this is critical for you to know, and it's critical for you to remember, you cannot do string comparisons using not equal to or equal in Java. You can't do that, because if you use equal or not equal to, it will not work. And the reason is because it's comparing objects, and the name is a string object in one part of a RAM, and this X character, the string that you create right here, was created in a different part of RAM. So that means that they will always be different objects. So unlike C# and C++ and Python, all these other languages, you cannot do primitive comparisons on strings in Java. Instead, you have to say while name dot equals, you have to use the equals operator. And if you don't want it to care about the case, you want to use equals ignore case. I like equals ignore case a lot. So you have to say while equals ignore case is false. All right, so that means that it is not equal to each other, okay? So you have to remember equals equals does not work against strings in Java. And that's a major gotcha for new Java programmers. So please be very careful with that. You have to use either equals or equals ignore case. So we're going to say while it's false. Now, another way that you could do this is you could use the not operator, okay? So what you could do is you could say while not name dot equals ignore case x curly brace. Okay, both these two lines mean exactly the same thing. You just have to remember that the exclamation mark, and I like to put a / exclamation means not, so that the person who's looking at my code does not miss that exclamation mark. Okay, so so while the name is not equal to x, we're going to keep repeating. All right, as soon as the name equals x, then we're done. So here we're going to say if name, and let's see, if name dot equals, and let's see, I'm hesitating because I'm basically going to do the exact same thing. So thinking I don't need to do that. So I'm going to say here, I'm just going to do a forever loop. So right here, I'm going to do a control X, and I'm going to say while true. So I'm just going to run it. I'm going to say just go, just make it happen. All right. So now here, I'm going to say if, and then I'm going to use that not operator like that. Okay. And curly brace enter key. So if the name is not X, then we want to do the rest of this. All right, let's see. Now, the person needs to give us a name for us to make this happen. So let's go ahead and get that name. I'm going to go ahead and say name, and let's go ahead and tell the user that we need the name. So I'm going to say system.out.print. When you're doing a prompt, you want to use print and not print ln, because ln means line, and that will drop you down to the next line. So we're going to say, and let's use exactly what they told us to use. So right here, enter name or X to quit, colon. All right, so I'm going to do a control C on this. I'm going to flip over here, and then I'm going to do a control V. So enter name or X to quit, and notice the space bar right there is important. Then I'm going to get the information from the user. To get information in the console environment, you have to use what's called a scanner. So right up here, I'm going to create a create scanner object to get input in console environment. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and say scanner. Scan becomes a new scanner, and then we're going to wrap that around the system.in pipe. So that's a keyboard input. All right, so that's how you create the scanner. You'll see us bleeding, so you come over here to the left-hand side and click, and then you have to make sure you choose the right one. If you choose anything else, it will crash your application and it will bury you deeper into problems. So it must be the import for Java util scanner. And sometimes other scanners will come up, like Beans scanner, this type of thing. Don't choose any of those. Make sure it's Java util scanner. All right. And if this does not come up, check the spelling of your scanner. Do you have two N's? Is it spelled correctly on both sides? All right. So I'm going to click here. And if it still doesn't come up, then just go up to the very top, go under the package, and then manually type this line right there. Import java.util.scanner. Okay, it has to be this one. All right, so now down here we've got our scanner created. Here I asked the user to enter in a name, and now I'm going to read the name. So I'm going to say name is going to be the scanner dot next line. So you can see the next line is going to get a string from the user. All right, so I'm going to go there, and that would put a semicolon. Now, if the name that you just gave me is not an X, then we want to get the rest of the information, and then we want to show the BMI results, or we want to show the health profile. Okay. On the other hand, if it is X, then the if does not have an else. So therefore, and actually, you know what? I think I do want to put an else on it. If it is X, then I want to break out of the loop. So break out of the while loop. All right, and because I made the while loop true, it means it's going to run forever. And the only way to get out is by using a break statement. Okay, and that's going to be our application. All right, so now if I run it, let me show you how this works. All right, now down here, I'm going to type in Joe. And you can see now I'm typing Mary. And you can see now I'm going to type in Terry. And you can see it keeps on going until I put an X. And then when I put in an X, the application's over. See how nice that looks? All right, so we want to get the rest of the information. So I'm going to go ahead and say system.out.print, enter, and let's see, what did they use? They just said your age. I don't like your age because you're getting it for other people. So I'll say enter age. All right. So I'm going to say enter age, colon, space bar. Okay. And then I'm going to say int age is going to be the scanner dot get an integer for me. All right. Then I'm going to say system.out.print. And I'm going to say enter, and let's see, what do we have? What's our order? All right, so weight and then feet and then inches. Okay, so enter weight. So I'm going to say double weight is going to be the scanner dot next double. And then I'm going to say system.out.print, enter, and I'm going to use the exact words that they're using. So height, feet, like that. Okay, so I'm going to do a control C, and then I'm going to flip over here. I'm going to do a control V, colon, space bar, and then I'm going to say double. And actually, I did this as an int, didn't I? So I'm going to go ahead and say feet. So I'm going to say scanner next inches, and then I'm going to say system.out.print, enter height inches, and then I'm going to say double inches. It's going to be scan dot next next double. All right, and there we go, got the input. So now for the health profile, I need to have a blank line, so it needs to look something like this right here. And notice the blank line, okay? So I'm going to grab this right here, I'm going to do a control C to copy, and then I'm going to flip back on over here, and now I do a control V to paste. And to make my life easier, I need to create a health profile object. So I'm going to say health profile object, and then I'm just going to call it HP. It's going to be a new health profile object. And now I'm going to use a constructor that takes the name and takes the age and takes the weight. And then I only have a constructor that takes the height in inches, and that's it. So let me see. I can go ahead and create another constructor. That'd make my life a lot easier, wouldn't it? So I'm going to go ahead and give it the feet, and I'm going to go ahead and give it the inches, like that. All right, so that creates a new object using that information. All right, so I don't have a constructor. You can see it's burning. So I'm going to come back over here to the health profile, and then this is the health profile here, and this is a constructor. This is called an overloaded constructor, right? Because they're both constructors, but one takes nothing, the other takes this information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another one. And to create another one, I'm going to make a copy of this one. So I'm going to grab this, I'm going to do a Control C, and I'm going to do a Control V. So you can have as many overloads as you want. And then here, I'm going to go ahead and take in the feet, and then I'm going to take in the inches, and the feet, I want the feet as an int. Okay, so you can see now I have 3 constructors. And then here on setting the height, I'm going to give it the feet, and I'm going to give it the inches, like this. So that's going to call that method that takes feet and inches. Isn't that cool? All right, so now I have 3 choices to create my objects. I can use the default and then use my setters, or I can use this one if I have the height in inches, or I can use this one where I have the feet and the inches separated. All right, so this is the one that I want. So now I'm going to hit Save All because I made a change in here. I'm going to go back over here, and then now the blood went away from here because now I have a constructor that takes feet and the inches. All right, so now I want to show the information. So I'm going to say system.out.println because I'm showing output, and then I'm going to show the health profile 4. But remember, I wanted a blank line before the line. And if you remember from your other classes, \n gives you a blank line. All right, and then I want a spacebar here, but I don't want Ann Jones. Instead, I want the health profile. I want to get the person's name from the health profile, like that. So that's how I replicated that one right there. All right, so now I'm going to say system.out.println, and then I'm going to do the BMI. But again, I don't want to use the BMI here. I want to use the person's BMI. So I'm going to use calculate BMI, which is a method. So I have to put in that left paren, right paren. All right, boom, there we go. Okay, and then the category, I need to do the category as well. Now, if you want, you can not have spaces, or you can put a space, but you need to be consistent. So if I put a space on the right side, I need to make sure to put a space on the left side. All right, so it just looks consistent. Okay, so now here, BMI category, I'm going to say system.out.println, and then I'm going to show BMI category, and then I'm going to concatenate that with my health profile dot calculate category. Whoops. Dot calculate category. There we go. All right, and then system.out.println, and then I'm going to put a space bar, and then max heart rate. HP dot calculate max HR. Boom. Okay, and then looking here, you can see we have a blank line before the enter name. All right, so I'm going to come back over here, and to do a blank line, I just say system.out.println with nothing inside of it. And that'll give me a blank line. All right, now we've got a bug in here. Everything looks beautiful, and we're almost done, but we do have a bug. Let me show you. I'm going to go ahead and run this. And then down here, I'm going to put in Jack Black, and then age, let's go 35, and then weight, let's say 210, and then height, let's say 5 feet, 10 inches. And then you can see Jack Black. Here's a health profile. Doesn't this look horrible? That looks horrible, doesn't it? Okay. All right, so now here, and then also doesn't this look horrible? It does, it skipped the name and it went right to age. Do you see that? So I've got two problems. This one is a huge problem, and this one right here just does not look professional. All right, so I can't get out of this because of this problem right here. So I need to stop the application from running by hitting the stop icon right there. So that kills it. All right, so remember, to kill an application, hit that right there. Okay, so how do we fix that? Well, the first thing is we want the BMI to look nicer. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, and I'm going to do this in 2 lines, even though I normally would do it in 1 line. I'm going to say BMI is going to be, and then I'm going to say HP, BMI. I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to put it here. All right. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the decimal format, which I'm going to call format, is going to be a new decimal format object. This is how you apply formatting in Java, okay? And then I'm going to say I want 1 single decimal place. So that's the template that I'm applying. And you can Google this and you can see the template for currency and other things like that, okay? Now over here on the left-hand side, I'm going to click on this, and then it says add import for Java text decimal format. If you don't see this, then that means that you misspelt it. So be really careful. Every other item in here will break your project. So every single one of these are wrong. The only one that's correct is this one. You got to be so careful when you're using NetBeans Assistance, all right? Because every single one of these is wrong and it will burn your project. So make sure it says add import for Java text decimal format. If it doesn't, it's probably because you misspelled decimal format. Maybe you put a lowercase f or something like that, all right? So now I'm going to click on here, and then here I'm going to say format, my format object that I just created. I want you to, and actually you know what, I don't want format. I think I want to use FMT. So my format object, I'm going to call it FMT, all right? And so my format object, my FMT object, I want you to apply formatting to the BMI number. Okay, so it's going to be 1 single decimal place applied to that BMI number. And that should look a lot nicer. All right, what about our other error? And our other error is caused by this right here, this line right here. When you put in a double, what happens is we typed in a 10, but then what do we type in? Enter. We hit the enter key. Well, that enter key is being used to get the next name. Do you see that? So that enter key, when it reads a double, it pulls the number, but that's all it pulls, just the number. So that enter key is still sitting on our keyboard buffer. So what we have to do is we have to come down here, we have to say scan.next string. Scan.next string. Not next string, it's actually scan.next line. Okay, there we go. So what this is going to do is it's going to read until it hits a enter key like that, or enter key. Okay, so the enter key is really a \n. Okay, but I want you to, you can think of it as the enter key. So the 10 enter, okay, gives a 10 and then a \n. So by doing a scan.next line, we're going to use up, and in fact, that's what I want us to put here. Use up the enter key, okay? So you want to use up that enter key and get it off of our keyboard buffer. All right, so now let's see how this looks. So I'm going to run it. And then down here, we'll put in Jack Black. And then let's say 35. and then 210, and then 510. Doesn't that look a whole lot better with that, with the decimal place applied, the decimal formatting applied? And then also now it's asking for the next one. So now we're going to say Mary Wilson, and then let's go 25, and then let's go 135, and then 58, and then X to quit. Boom, application's over. All right, so you can see we've got our loop going. The calculations are all beautiful. Everything looks really good, and that's how to do it. All right, so this is your first application with Java, and a number of different concepts we've covered. But just remember, with the console, you have to use a scanner to get input, and then also please remember that when you're doing comparisons, you cannot use equals equals against strings. That does not work in Java. That's a biggie. Okay. And then finally, when you are reading, you have to remember that when you're reading a number, it only pulls off the number, and the enter key sits on the keyboard buffer, so you have to use up that enter key. All right, everybody have a